A 40-ton humpback whale is wrapped in fishing rope. One wrong move and it can kill everyone in the rescue boat without even meaning to. But as the knife slips under the line, the whale goes strangely still. Not calm, not tame, just still enough. So here is the question. Does it know the humans are trying to help? Most people answer this one too fast, either with Disney nonsense, of course animals feel gratitude just like we do, or with the opposite kind of nonsense. No, wild animals are just reflexes with fur. Both answers are lazy. Real life is weirder than that. A wild animal probably does not look at a human and think, ah yes, this biped appears motivated by altruism. That would be a deeply annoying thought for a deer to have. But many wild animals absolutely can tell the difference between a human who is becoming a problem and a human who is removing one. That difference matters. Call it the threat map. Every wild animal that survives long enough builds one. Which smells are danger, which sounds mean run, which shapes mean predator, which places mean food, which humans throw rocks, which humans bring fish, which humans stare too long, which ones cut the net instead of tightening it. A crow does not need a philosophy degree to work this out, and crows are a good place to start, because they are petty, brilliant, and hold grudges like tiny feathery lawyers. In 2008, John Marsluff and his team at the University of Washington did one of the meanest and most useful experiments in animal behavior. They captured crows while wearing a specific human mask. Years later, wild crows still mobbed that mask on sight. Even younger crows who had never been captured joined in, because the original birds had apparently spread the news. So now we know something important. A wild animal does not just react to human as one giant category. It can sort humans into types. Dangerous one, safe one, food one, weird one. Absolutely not that guy. That alone gets you halfway to the answer. Because if an animal can recognize that one specific human is bad, it can also recognize when one specific human is not. That does not yet mean help. It means the threat map has detail. And detail is where the interesting stuff lives. Now go back to that whale. Marine disentanglement teams have described this for years. A huge whale panicking under line tension, then changing its behavior once the rope starts coming off. Less rolling, less thrashing. Sometimes what looks like active cooperation, or at least an abrupt decision not to make the situation worse. You have to be careful here, because humans are emotional and love projecting moral nobility onto anything with eyes. But even after you strip away the sentiment, the pattern remains. Pain is changing. Pressure is changing. The thing attached to the body is getting looser. The creature near the body is not biting, stabbing, or pinning harder. That is information. And wild animals are very, very good at information when survival depends on it. A humpback does not need to think these kind strangers are rescuers. It only needs to register a sequence. Approach, contact, less restraint, less pain. On the threat map, the human moves from danger to relief. That is enough to look miraculous from a boat. It also tells you something uncomfortable about how many humans still misunderstand intelligence. We keep acting like an animal either speaks our language or understands nothing. But in the wild, reading consequences is more valuable than reading intentions in the abstract. A gazelle that waits for a moral explanation gets eaten. And it is not just whales. Wild birds do this too. Wildlife rehabilitators see it constantly. A hawk brought in with fishing line wrapped around its leg will often begin in full panic, wings out, eyes wide, trying to turn the entire room into an emergency. Then, in some cases, the moment the pressure is relieved, the animal changes. Not into a pet, not into a friend, just into something less convinced that your hands are the main problem. That shift is fascinating, because it means the body is teaching the mind in real time. The animal may not know your goal, it knows your effect. There are also the animals that seem to go even further than that, and this is where science gets cautious and the internet gets embarrassing. You can find plenty of viral videos claiming that a manta ray asked a diver to remove a hook, or that a dolphin knew a person was trying to save it. Some of those stories are exaggerated. Some are impossible to verify. Some are just humans falling in love with a nice narrative, because nice narratives are easier to live with than uncertainty. But not all of them are fake. There are enough credible reports of wild animals approaching humans while injured, entangled, or in obvious distress that the idea cannot just be laughed off. The cleanest interpretation is not that they understand human kindness in the way we use the word. It is that some species can recognize a specific kind of opportunity. This thing with hands may be dangerous. This thing with hands may also be the only creature here capable of removing the thing that is killing me. That is not trust exactly. It is not nothing either. And some animals are probably better at this than others. Social animals already live inside a world of intention reading. Elephants track mood and posture. Corvids track individual behavior. Primates track goals, attention, rank and deception all day long because their social lives are exhausting and badly designed. A species built to read other minds, or at least read the behavior that stands in for minds, has a better shot at noticing when another creature's actions are organized around relief rather than harm. That is why this question feels different with a whale than with a lizard. Different nervous systems, different social machinery, different bandwidth for reading what another body is trying to do. And that brings us to the real reframe. Wild animals do not need to understand help the way humans do. They only need to understand enough. Enough to notice that this movement is not a chase. Enough to notice that this contact reduces pain instead of increasing it. Enough to notice that this human acts differently from the one with the gun, the net, the stone, the engine, the trap, the hook. The phrase trying to help is our version of the story. The animal's version is simpler. This one is not making it worse. Sometimes that is the whole bridge, and honestly, there is something beautiful about that. Not in a fake inspirational quote way, in a much stranger way. It means wildness is not the absence of understanding. It is understanding under pressure, with no words, no contracts, and no guarantee that the next human will behave anything like the last one. That is a rough world to build a threat map in, but animals do it anyway. You can see this especially clearly in species that survive around humans without becoming domesticated. Urban crows, foxes, coyotes, gulls, monkeys around temples and roadsides. They are not used to us in some broad sloppy sense. They are running detailed predictions. This person feeds, that person chases. This street is safe at noon and deadly at dusk. That balcony throws scraps, that balcony throws shoes. A wild animal living near humans becomes, whether it likes it or not, a student of human inconsistency. And now think about how weird it is when one of those animals in pain lets a human hand come close. That is not friendship. That is not surrender. That is not a Disney montage waiting to happen. It is something rarer, a temporary agreement. For one impossible minute, the hand and the animal are on the same side of the problem. That is why rescue footage hits so hard. Not because it proves animals think exactly like we do. It doesn't. It proves the gap between species is not total. Pain, danger, and relief are old enough to cross it. A whale does not need your moral vocabulary to recognize that the rope is loosening. A crow does not need your legal system to know which face means trouble. A fox does not need your philosophy to know when a trap is closing and when it is opening. The threat map is enough. So do wild animals know when a human is trying to help them? Sometimes, yes, in the only way that matters. Not as a theory, not as a speech, not as gratitude with subtitles. As a pattern, approach, contact, less pain, less pressure, still alive. And that may be more impressive than the sentimental version anyway, because it means the recognition is real. It is not built from stories, it is built from consequences, which makes the whole thing feel even more human, strangely enough, because a lot of us do the same thing. We do not always know someone's intentions. We know how we feel after they touch our life, and sometimes that is enough to stop fighting. If you want more videos like this, curious, slightly strange, and calmer than the internet usually deserves, I make them regularly, and I'd genuinely appreciate it if you subscribed. And if you had to guess, which wild animal do you think reads us best? Whales, crows, elephants, or something even weirder? Because somewhere out there, something with no language for kindness may still recognize relief when it arrives.